Comment where you're watching from today. This story will show you how a simple act of kindness can change everything. In the bustling halls of Roosevelt Middle School, where dreams were meant to flourish and young minds were supposed to grow, 11-year-old Emma Martinez stood frozen in place, her small hands clutching the straps of her backpack so tightly her knuckles turned white. The annual Spring Achievement Awards ceremony was meant to be a celebration of student success, but for Emma, it had become a moment of profound humiliation. A group of 8th grade students, led by the influential Jessica Reynolds, had turned what should have been one of Emma's proudest moments into a nightmare. Emma had just received recognition for her outstanding performance in mathematics, but as she made her way back to her seat, the whispers and barely contained laughter from Jessica's group cut through the air like razor blades. "Look at that rat's nest," Jessica's voice carried just loud enough for those nearby to hear, referring to Emma's naturally curly hair that she had spent hours trying to tame that morning. "Doesn't her family own a brush? Or maybe they can't afford one?" The comment sparked another round of stifled giggles from her followers. Emma's mother, Isabella Martinez, a hard-working single parent who had taken time off from her 2 jobs to attend the ceremony, sat in the audience, unaware of the cruel exchange happening just a few rows ahead. She beamed with pride, watching her daughter through tears of joy, completely oblivious to the pain her little girl was experiencing. The school principal, Dr. Anderson, continued announcing awards on stage, his voice echoing through the auditorium. But for Emma, the words became a distant buzz as she focused all her energy on holding back tears. Her hair, which had always been a source of both pride and insecurity, suddenly felt like a heavy burden on her shoulders. The torment might have continued if not for the presence of another special guest that day, someone whose arrival had been kept as a surprise for the students. As Jessica opened her mouth to deliver another cutting remark, the principal's voice took on a different tone, one filled with excitement and reverence. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, students and faculty, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our special guest speaker, a man who needs no introduction but deserves every accolade we could possibly give him. A champion not just in the world of sports and entertainment, but a champion of education, youth development, and human kindness." The anticipation in the room was palpable. Even Jessica and her friends fell silent, their attention drawn to the stage. Emma, still fighting back tears, looked up just as the figure emerged from behind the curtain, his presence immediately commanding the attention of every person in the auditorium. Arnold Schwarzenegger stepped onto the stage with the same confidence and charisma that had made him a global icon. His suit was impeccable, his smile genuine, but it was his eyes that captured everyone's attention. They seemed to take in everything, missing nothing. As he approached the podium, something caught his attention. Perhaps it was divine intervention, or maybe it was years of being attuned to the subtle dynamics of human interaction. But his gaze fell directly on the section where Emma sat, just as another poorly concealed laugh escaped from Jessica's group. The former governor of California, actor and bodybuilding legend, paused for a moment. Those who knew him well would recognize that look. The slight narrowing of his eyes, the almost imperceptible tilt of his head. He had noticed something was amiss, and Arnold Schwarzenegger had never been one to ignore injustice, no matter how small it might seem to others. He gripped the podium with both hands, his presence somehow growing even larger. "Before I begin my prepared speech," his distinctive voice filled the auditorium, "I want to talk about something I just witnessed." The room fell into complete silence. Even the usual shuffling of feet and rustling of papers ceased. "You know, I've been in many rooms like this one throughout my life. I've seen champions crowned, deals made, laws passed. But do you know what makes the biggest impression on me? It's not the victories or the defeats, it's how people treat each other when they think no one important is watching. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as Arnold's gaze seemed to settle directly on her section. Jessica and her friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the smirks falling from their faces as they realized their behavior hadn't gone unnoticed. "I saw a young lady receive an award for mathematics excellence just now. That's impressive, very impressive. But what's not impressive is what I saw happening afterward." His voice took on an edge that many would recognize from his famous movie roles. But this wasn't acting. This was genuine conviction. "You see, I wasn't always the Arnold you know today. When I first came to America, people laughed at my accent. They mocked the way I looked, the way I spoke. Some said I would never make it in movies because of the way I sounded. They said I couldn't be a successful businessman because I was just a bodybuilder. They said I couldn't be governor because I was just an actor." The silence in the auditorium grew deeper, if that was possible. Every student, teacher, and parent hung on his words. Emma's mother, now noticing her daughter's distress, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "But let me tell you something that I learned very early in life. The people who mock others, who try to tear them down, they're not showing their strength. They're showing their weakness. They're showing their fear. Because strong people, confident people, they lift others up. They don't push them down." Arnold stepped away from the podium, moving to the edge of the stage. His eyes found Emma's, and he smiled, a warm, encouraging smile that seemed to wash away some of the hurt she'd been feeling. "Young lady with the beautiful curls. Yes, you." He pointed directly at Emma, causing her to sit up straighter, despite her surprise. "Would you please stand up?" Emma slowly rose to her feet, her legs trembling slightly. Jessica and her friends seemed to shrink in their seats, their earlier bravado completely evaporated. "Your hair? It's gorgeous, it's unique, it's part of who you are, and who you are is exactly who you should be. I read that you just won the highest mathematics achievement award in your grade. That brilliant mind of yours, combined with your natural beauty, that's your superpower. Never let anyone make you feel less than extraordinary." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes again, but these were different tears. These were tears of relief, of joy, of validation. Her mother squeezed her shoulder, her own eyes glistening with emotion. Arnold wasn't finished. His gaze swept over to Jessica and her group. "And to those who think it's okay to mock others, remember this: every great person you admire started as someone others underestimated. Every success story began with someone pushing through criticism and doubt. When you mock someone's appearance, their hair, their clothes, their accent, you're not revealing their flaws, you're revealing your own." The impact of his words was visible on Jessica's face. The usually confident eighth grader looked down at her hands, her cheeks flushed with shame. Her friends, who had been so quick to join in the mockery earlier, now sat in uncomfortable silence. "I've learned in my life that the true measure of strength isn't in how much you can lift, how many movies you can make, or how many votes you can get. It's in how you treat others, especially those who can't do anything for you in return. It's about lifting people up when others try to tear them down." Arnold's voice softened slightly, but his words carried no less power. "So today, at this celebration of achievement, I want to challenge every person in this room. The next time you have a choice between mocking someone and supporting them, remember this moment. Remember that real strength, real power, comes from kindness." The auditorium erupted in applause, not the polite, obligatory kind that often follows speeches at school events, but genuine, heartfelt applause that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. Emma remained standing, her back straight, her chin held high as tears of joy rolled down her cheeks. Her curls, which moments ago had been a source of shame, now seemed to frame her face like a crown. In that moment, something shifted in the atmosphere of Roosevelt Middle School. Jessica and her friends weren't just embarrassed, they were transformed. The look on their faces suggested that they were seeing Emma and perhaps themselves in a completely new light. And as Arnold prepared to continue with his prepared speech, his eyes met Emma's one more time, and he gave her a subtle wink. In that simple gesture was a world of understanding, of shared experience, and of triumph over those who would try to diminish others, to make themselves feel bigger. This was more than just a moment of standing up to bullies. It was a lesson in human dignity, in the power of kindness, and in the importance of using one's influence to lift others up. As the applause finally died down, the energy in the room had fundamentally changed. Every person present knew they had witnessed something special, something that went far beyond the usual speeches and ceremonies of a school awards day. And somewhere in the audience, a phone had captured it all, ready to share this powerful moment with the world, reminding everyone that sometimes the biggest heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they just have the courage to stand up for what's right, and the wisdom to turn moments of cruelty into lessons of kindness. Share this video if you believe in the power of kindness and standing up for others. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. The events that led to this pivotal moment at Roosevelt Middle School began 3 months earlier, on a crisp winter morning when Emma Martinez first transferred to the school. Her mother, Isabella, had finally secured a better-paying position at the city hospital, allowing them to move to a more prosperous neighborhood. It was a fresh start they both desperately needed, but new beginnings often come with their own set of challenges. Emma's first day had started with such hope. She had carefully chosen her outfit, a purple sweater her grandmother had knitted before passing away the previous year, and her favorite jeans, slightly worn at the knees but still her lucky pair. Her curly hair, a trait inherited from her father's Puerto Rican heritage, had been carefully arranged that morning, each spiral seeming to have a mind of its own despite her best efforts with the brush. The hallways of Roosevelt Middle School were different from her old school. Here the floors gleamed under fluorescent lights, and student artwork lined the walls in expensive frames. Everything seemed bigger, cleaner, more intimidating. The students carried designer backpacks and wore clothes that Emma had only seen in store windows. It was in these halls that she first encountered Jessica Reynolds and her group. Jessica, the daughter of a prominent local real estate developer, had ruled the 8th grade social hierarchy since elementary school. Her perfectly straight blonde hair always styled in the latest trends, her clothes always bearing the right labels, she represented everything Emma's family could never afford. But it wasn't just about money. Jessica wielded her influence like a finely honed weapon, deciding who was in and who was out, with the casual cruelty that only teenage girls seemed to master. The mathematics department became Emma's sanctuary. Numbers didn't care about designer labels or perfect hair. They didn't judge based on zip codes or family backgrounds. Under the guidance of Mr. Chen, her math teacher, Emma's natural talent flourished. He recognized something special in the quiet girl who always sat in the front row, her eyes lighting up at every new challenge he presented. Mathematics, Mr. Chen would say, is the universal language. It doesn't discriminate, it doesn't play favorites. It only rewards those willing to put in the work, and work Emma did. While Jessica and her friends spent their lunch periods holding court in the cafeteria, Emma could often be found in Mr. Chen's classroom, working through advanced problems that even some high school students would find challenging. Isabella Martinez watched her daughter's dedication with a mixture of pride and concern. Working double shifts at the hospital meant she couldn't always be there when Emma came home from school, but she made sure to check every homework assignment, to celebrate every perfect test score. They had a ritual. Every Friday night, no matter how tired Isabella was from her shifts, they would make hot chocolate and talk about their week. It was during one of these Friday night conversations that Emma first mentioned the upcoming Spring Achievement Awards. "Mr. Chen says I might have a chance at the top math award," she had said quietly, stirring her hot chocolate. "But maybe I shouldn't go for it. Jessica and her friends already think I'm trying too hard to fit in." Isabella had set down her mug, then taking her daughter's hands in hers. "Mi amor, never dim your light because others prefer to live in shadows. Your father would be so proud of you." The mention of Emma's father, who had passed away in service overseas when she was just 4, brought tears to both their eyes. His photo, showing him in his military uniform with his own curly hair and bright smile, held a place of honor in their small living room. What neither Emma nor Isabella knew was that Mr. Chen had been watching the dynamics between his students carefully. He had seen the way Jessica and her friends whispered and laughed when Emma answered questions in class. He had noticed the subtle ways they tried to undermine her confidence. And he had done something about it. Weeks before the awards ceremony, Mr. Chen had reached out to an old college friend who now worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger's educational initiatives. He shared Emma's story, not just her mathematical brilliance, but her resilience in the face of subtle bullying and social pressure. The story resonated with Arnold's own experiences as an outsider who succeeded through determination and hard work. The morning of the awards ceremony, the school was abuzz with excitement. Rumors had circulated about a special guest, but no one knew exactly who it would be. Jessica and her friends had arrived early, claiming prime seats in the auditorium. They had spent extra time on their appearance, hoping to impress whoever the mystery speaker might be. Emma and her mother had arrived just as the ceremony was about to begin. Isabella, still in her hospital scrubs after working an early morning shift, had barely made it in time. They found seats near the back, Emma clutching her note cards. Mr. Chen had asked her to say a few words when accepting her award, and she had practiced her short speech countless times in front of her mirror. The ceremony began with Dr. Anderson's welcome address, followed by various academic and athletic awards. With each passing moment, the anticipation in the room grew. Students shifted in their seats, phones ready to capture whatever surprise awaited them. Even the teachers seemed unusually alert, sharing knowing glances with each other. Jessica had been particularly vocal that morning, her confidence boosted by the new designer outfit her father had bought her for the occasion. "I heard the guest speaker is someone really famous," she had told her friends loudly enough for others to hear. "Probably someone who actually belongs in a place like this." The comment had been aimed at Emma, who was wearing her best dress. A simple blue number that Isabella had found on sale. The irony wasn't lost on Mr. Chen, who sat among the faculty, watching it all unfold. He knew that Arnold Schwarzenegger's story would resonate particularly well in this setting. Here was someone who had arrived in America with little more than determination and dreams, who had faced mockery for his accent and background, yet had achieved success in multiple fields through sheer force of will and character. As the mathematics awards approached, Emma's nervousness grew. She had worked so hard for this moment, spent countless hours solving extra problems, participated in every math competition the school offered. But now, hearing Jessica's whispered comments about her hair and clothes, she wondered if she really belonged on that stage. Isabella sensed her daughter's anxiety and squeezed her hand. "Remember what your father always said," she whispered. "Our roots are our strength." Emma touched her curly hair self-consciously, remembering the photos of her father with the same untamable curls, standing proud in his uniform. The atmosphere in the auditorium shifted subtly as Mr. Chen took the stage to present the mathematics awards. His usual calm demeanor carried an extra hint of satisfaction, as if he knew something wonderful was about to unfold. He began with the honorable mentions, then the third and second place awards. "And now," he said, his voice carrying clearly, Through the auditorium, the highest mathematics achievement award goes to a student who has demonstrated not only exceptional academic ability, but also the kind of perseverance and character that we strive to develop here at Roosevelt Middle School. This student has maintained a perfect score in advanced mathematics while also participating in regional competitions and helping tutor other students. Please join me in congratulating Emma Martinez. The applause that followed was polite but mixed with whispers and giggles from Jessica's section. Emma rose from her seat, her legs shaking slightly. Isabella wiped tears from her eyes as she watched her daughter walk toward the stage. Mr. Chen's smile was warm and encouraging as he handed Emma her award and the small envelope containing a certificate of achievement. It was at this precise moment, as Emma turned to face the audience, that Jessica's voice carried just a bit too loudly through the settling applause. "Look at that rat's nest on her head. I guess they don't have brushes in her part of town." The comment sparked barely contained laughter from her friends, creating a ripple of discomfort through the nearby seats. What happened next would become one of the most viewed and shared moments on social media that year. As Emma stood frozen on stage, clutching her award, as Jessica's laughter threatened to overshadow her achievement, as Isabella half rose from her seat, unsure whether to intervene, that was when Dr. Anderson stepped up to the microphone to introduce their surprise guest. And as Arnold Schwarzenegger emerged from behind the curtain, his presence filling the stage with an almost tangible energy, the scene was set for a moment of transformation that would impact not just Emma and Jessica, but every person in that auditorium. The legend himself was about to demonstrate why true strength isn't measured by social status or designer labels, but by the courage to stand up for what's right and the wisdom to lift others up instead of tearing them down. Share this video too. Spread the message that our differences make us stronger. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. The auditorium at Roosevelt Middle School fell into a stunned silence as Arnold Schwarzenegger's words resonated through the space. His presence on stage had transformed what would have been just another instance of casual cruelty into a powerful teaching moment. But the story wasn't over. In fact, it was about to take an even more remarkable turn. Jessica Reynolds sat in her seat, her face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and defiance. She had never been called out so publicly before, especially not by someone of Arnold's stature. Her friends, who moments ago had been laughing along with her taunts, now seemed to be trying to distance themselves, shifting uncomfortably in their seats and avoiding eye contact. But Jessica, raised in an environment where saving face was paramount, made one final, fatal mistake. As Arnold paused in his speech, she muttered under her breath, just loud enough for those nearby to hear, "Whatever. At least my dad's alive to buy me a brush." The cruel comment rippled through the nearby seats. Several students gasped audibly. Mr. Chen, who was sitting close enough to hear, felt his blood run cold. Even Jessica's closest friends looked at her in shock, this line having crossed a boundary that even they recognized as too far. Arnold, with his years of experience reading rooms and crowds, caught the shift in atmosphere. His sharp eyes narrowed slightly as he observed the reaction. "Something else you'd like to share with everyone?" he asked, his accent making the question sound both invitation and challenge. The auditorium grew so quiet, you could hear the gentle hum of the air conditioning. Jessica, suddenly realizing she was being directly addressed by Arnold Schwarzenegger, felt her carefully constructed world of social superiority beginning to crumble. But rather than backing down, she made the choice, and that bullies often make when cornered. She doubled down. Standing up with what she hoped was an air of confidence, Jessica raised her chin. "I just think," she said, her voice wavering slightly, "that if someone wants to fit in here, they should at least try to look the part. This is Roosevelt Middle School, not some charity case." Arnold's expression shifted, not to anger as many might have expected, but to something more powerful, disappointment mixed with determination. He had faced similar attitudes throughout his life, from his early days as an immigrant to his time in Hollywood and politics. He recognized in Jessica the same fear and insecurity that often drove people to tear others down. "Young lady," he began, his voice carrying a weight that made Jessica's false confidence waver. "Come up here." It wasn't a request. Even Dr. Anderson, who had half risen to intervene, settled back into his seat. There was something happening here that transcended normal school protocol. Jessica's legs seemed to move of their own accord as she made her way to the stage. Her designer shoes, which had clicked so confidently across the floors earlier that day, now seemed to shuffle uncertainly. As she reached the stage, Arnold gestured for her to stand next to Emma, who remained rooted in place, still clutching her mathematics award. "Now," Arnold said, addressing not just Jessica but the entire auditorium, "let's talk about what it means to look the part. When I came to America, people told me I didn't look the part of an actor. My muscles were too big, my accent too thick. When I decided to go into politics, they said I didn't look the part of a governor. Too much of a Hollywood action star, they said." He turned to face Jessica directly. "Tell me, what exactly is the part that someone needs to look to belong here? Is it the expensive clothes, the straight hair, or maybe it's having two parents who can afford to buy whatever their child wants?" Jessica's lower lip trembled slightly. In all her years of maintaining her social position at Roosevelt, no one had ever challenged her this directly. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Arnold continued, his voice taking on a gentler tone. "You know what I see. When I look at Emma, I see someone who earned her place here through hard work and determination. I see someone who, despite losing her father at a young age, despite facing economic challenges, despite dealing with bullies," here he paused meaningfully, "has achieved excellence in one of the most challenging subjects there is." Emma, who had been fighting back tears, stood a little straighter. Arnold's words seemed to wrap around her like a protective shield, transforming her father's absence from a source of shame into a testament to her resilience. "But let me tell you what else I see," Arnold said, now addressing the entire auditorium again. "I see a young lady named Jessica who's so afraid of losing her place in the social hierarchy that she's willing to hurt others to maintain it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the opposite of strength. That's weakness wearing designer clothes." The words hit Jessica like physical blows. Tears began to well up in her eyes, but Arnold wasn't finished. He had recognized something in this moment, an opportunity not just to shame a bully, but to teach a lesson that could transform lives. "You mentioned Emma's father," he said, his voice now carrying a edge that made several teachers sit up straighter. "Let me tell you about sacrifice and honor. Emma's father gave his life serving this country. He died protecting the very freedoms that allow you to stand here and mock his daughter. That's what real strength looks like. That's what looking the part truly means." Isabella Martinez, still in her hospital scrubs, was openly crying now. Several other parents in the audience were wiping away tears as well. Even Dr. Anderson seemed to be struggling to maintain his composure. "But this isn't about making you feel bad, Jessica," Arnold continued, surprising everyone with this turn. "This is about helping you understand something I learned long ago. True strength isn't about putting others down to lift yourself up. It's about lifting others up even when you're feeling down yourself." He placed one hand on Jessica's shoulder and the other on Emma's. "Both of you have strength inside you. Emma shows hers through perseverance and excellence. Jessica, you have the potential to be a leader. But right now, you're choosing to use that power to hurt instead of help." Then Arnold did something unexpected. He turned to Emma and asked, "What do you think? Should we show Jessica what real strength looks like?" Emma, who had remained silent throughout this exchange, looked at Jessica for a long moment. The girl, who had tormented her for months, suddenly looked small and vulnerable. In that moment, Emma made a choice that would later be viewed millions of times on social media. "I could help you with math," she said quietly. "I know you've been struggling with algebra. I hear you complaining about it in class sometimes. We could study together during lunch instead of, you know." The simplicity and generosity of the offer seemed to break something in Jessica. The tears she had been holding back began to fall freely. Her carefully constructed facade of superiority crumbled completely as she realized that the girl she had been tormenting was offering her help instead of revenge. Arnold's smile could have lit up the entire auditorium. "Now that is what I call strength. This is what we can all learn from today. It's not about who has the most expensive clothes or the perfect hair. It's not about who has 2 parents or 1. It's about who we choose to be when we have the power to hurt or help." He turned to address the entire audience again. "I want every person in this room to remember this moment. Remember how it felt to watch someone choose kindness over revenge. Remember how it felt to see real strength in action. Because let me tell you something. The world doesn't need more bullies. It needs more people like Emma who can stand tall in the face of cruelty and still offer a helping hand." The impact of this moment rippled through the auditorium. Students who had previously ignored or enabled Jessica's behavior were now seeing both her and Emma in a completely new light. Teachers were discreetly wiping away tears, recognizing that they were witnessing something far more valuable than any planned lesson. Jessica, still crying, did something that no one expected. She turned to Emma and, in front of everyone, said something that would later be quoted in thousands of social media posts. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was jealous because you make everything look so easy, even with everything. I've been horrible to you, and you're still willing to help me. I don't deserve it." Emma's response, equally quoted and shared, was simple but powerful. "My dad always said that the true test of a person's character is how they treat others when they're hurting. I think maybe you've been hurting too." Arnold watched this exchange with satisfaction, knowing that sometimes the most powerful moments of transformation come not from grand gestures, but from simple acts of understanding and forgiveness. The atmosphere in the auditorium had shifted from tension to something approaching revelation, as students and teachers alike witnessed the real-time transformation of a bully into someone who might, with guidance and support, become a force for good instead of harm. Share this video if you believe in the power of forgiveness and transformation. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. The atmosphere in Roosevelt Middle School's auditorium continued to crackle with emotional electricity as Arnold Schwarzenegger guided the unfolding situation with the skill of someone who had spent decades in the public eye. But even he couldn't have predicted the ripple effects that were about to transform this school assembly into something far more profound. From her seat in the audience, Rebecca Chen, a 7th grade student who had been silently enduring her own battles with bullying, pulled out her phone and started recording. Her hands trembled slightly as she captured the scene unfolding on stage. Emma standing tall despite her tears, Jessica's unexpected vulnerability, and Arnold's commanding presence bringing it all together. The video would later go viral, but in that moment, Rebecca was simply documenting something she instinctively knew was important. Her own curly hair, which she had been chemically straightening since 5th grade to avoid similar taunts, suddenly felt like less of a burden. Arnold, sensing that the momentum of this teachable moment couldn't be lost, took a step forward. "You know what I see right now?" His voice carried through the hushed auditorium. "I see 2 young ladies who just taught us all something about courage, but let's talk about why this matters beyond today." He turned to address the wider audience. his years of public speaking experience evident in every measured gesture. In my time as governor, I met thousands of people, millionaires, celebrities, world leaders, but you know who often impressed me the most? The single parents working multiple jobs to give their children a better life. The students who overcome personal tragedy to excel in their studies. The people who face mockery and discrimination but refuse to let it define them. Isabella Martinez clutched her hospital ID badge, her scrubs suddenly feeling like a badge of honor rather than something to be embarrassed about at a school function. Around her, other parents in work uniforms sat up straighter, pride replacing discomfort. But there's another kind of courage we're seeing today, Arnold continued, placing a hand on Jessica's shoulder. The courage to admit when we're wrong, the courage to be vulnerable. Jessica, would you like to say something to everyone? Jessica stepped forward, her designer outfit no longer serving as armor, but seeming to highlight her vulnerability. Her voice shook as she began to speak, but gained strength with each word. I've been awful, not just to Emma, but to lots of people. I thought being mean made me powerful. But standing here now, I feel powerful for the first time. Because I'm finally being honest. She turned to face the audience, her eyes finding faces she had tormented over the years. Last month, I made fun of David's second-hand clothes. 2 weeks ago, I laughed at Maria's accent. Yesterday, I mocked Rebecca for bringing ethnic food for lunch. Each admission seemed to lift a weight from her shoulders, while simultaneously causing various students in the audience to sit up in recognition. Arnold nodded encouragingly. Admitting our mistakes is just the first step. The real challenge is changing our behavior. But you know what? I believe in second chances. I believe in redemption. My whole life is a story of transformation and second chances. He addressed the entire auditorium again. How many of you have ever felt like you didn't belong? Raise your hands. Slowly, hands began to rise. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Even some teachers raised their hands. Keep them up if you've ever pretended to be someone you're not just to fit in. Almost none of the hands lowered. Now this is important. Arnold's voice took on an even more serious tone. Keep your hand up if you've ever been mean to someone, else because you were feeling bad about yourself. The honesty of the moment was palpable as many hands remained raised, including Jessica's. Look around, he commanded. Really look. This is the truth about bullying. It's a cycle. People who are hurt often hurt others. But today, right now, we have a chance to break that cycle. Emma, who had been quietly watching this unfold, suddenly spoke up. Her voice was soft but clear. My dad used to say that hurt people, but healed people heal people. The simplicity and wisdom of the statement caused Arnold to turn to her with newfound respect. Your father was a wise man, he said, and his daughter is proving to be just as wise. He turned back to the audience. You know, in all my movies, I played characters who fought external enemies, but the real battles, the ones that matter most, are the ones we fight within ourselves. The battle to be kind when it's easier to be cruel. The battle to stand up for others when it's safer to stay silent. Dr. Anderson stepped forward then, sensing an opportunity to institutionalize this moment of transformation. Mr. Schwarzenegger is right, and starting today, Roosevelt Middle School is going to make some changes. We're establishing a new peer support program. Emma, Jessica, would you both be willing to help lead it? The two girls looked at each other, surprise evident on both their faces. Arnold watched with approval as Emma nodded immediately, while Jessica, after a moment's hesitation, did the same. But why stop there? Arnold interjected. I'm going to make you all a promise right now. In 1 year, I'll come back to this school, and I want to hear how you've transformed Roosevelt Middle School. I want to hear stories of friendship replacing bullying, of support replacing mockery, of strength being used to lift others up instead of push them down. The energy in the auditorium shifted from emotional to electric. The prospect of Arnold's return, combined with the raw honesty of the moment, created a sense of possibility that seemed to fill the air. In the audience, Rebecca Chen was still recording. Her phone captured the moment when other students began to stand up one by one, sharing their own stories of being bullied or being bullies. It captured the tears, the hugs, the apologies, and most importantly, the promises to do better. Mr. Chen, watching from his seat among the faculty, smiled as he saw several of his students who normally sat apart beginning to talk to each other. The invisible barriers of social status and cliques seemed to be dissolving in real time. Arnold, seeing the spontaneous dialogue breaking out across the auditorium, raised his hands for attention one more time. Before we continue with the awards ceremony, I want to tell you something about strength. Real strength isn't about muscles, although I know a thing or two about those. This earned a gentle laugh from the audience. Real strength is about character. It's about the courage to be yourself in a world that often wants you to be someone else. It's about standing up for others when it would be easier to look away. And sometimes it's about admitting when we've been wrong and doing the hard work to make things right. He turned to Emma and Jessica, still standing on stage. These two young ladies have shown us different kinds of strength today. Emma showed us the strength of resilience and forgiveness. Jessica showed us the strength of admitting mistakes and choosing to change. Both kinds of strength are valuable. Both kinds of strength are necessary. Isabella Martinez stood up then, still in her hospital scrubs, and began to applaud. The applause spread through the auditorium like a wave, building to a thunderous crescendo. But this wasn't just applause for Arnold Schwarzenegger, the celebrity. This was applause for Emma's resilience, for Jessica's courage to change, for the possibility of transformation that now seemed within everyone's reach. As the applause began to die down, Arnold had one final message. Remember this day. Remember how it feels right now, this moment of honesty and possibility. And remember that every day each one of you has the power to choose what kind of person you want to be. You can choose to be strong like Emma, who didn't let bullying break her spirit. You can choose to be brave like Jessica, who had the courage to admit her mistakes and commit to change. The choice is yours. The camera caught it all. The tears, the smiles, the moments of revelation and transformation. Rebecca's video would soon spread across social media, touching millions of lives and inspiring similar conversations in schools across the country. But in that moment, in that auditorium, something more immediate and precious was happening. Real change was beginning, one heart at a time. Share this video to remind everyone that it's never too late to choose kindness over cruelty. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. The video that Rebecca Chen captured on her phone that day spread across social media with the speed and force of a digital tsunami. Within hours of the assembly, the hashtag Dire Roosevelt Revolution began trending, carrying with it a message that resonated far beyond the walls of one middle school. But what happened next would transform this viral moment into a movement that none of the participants could have anticipated. As Arnold prepared to continue with his planned speech, his phone buzzed with an urgent message. His eyes widened slightly as he read it, and a smile spread across his face, the kind of smile that suggested he had just received news that would change everything. "Before I continue," he said, his accent thick with emotion, "I need to share something with all of you, particularly with you, Emma." He pulled out his phone, the screen casting a blue glow on his face in the dimmed auditorium. "I just received a message from the Arnold Schwarzenegger Foundation. They were watching this entire event via live stream." A murmur of surprise rippled through the audience. None of them, not even Dr. Anderson, had known that the event was being broadcast beyond the school's walls. Rebecca Chen's hands trembled as she realized her video wasn't the only record of what had transpired. The foundation has made a decision, Arnold continued. We are establishing the Warriors of Change Scholarship Program, effective immediately. This program will provide full college scholarships to students who demonstrate exceptional academic achievement while overcoming personal challenges and showing remarkable character. He turned to Emma, whose eyes had grown wide with disbelief. Emma Martinez, you are our first recipient. Your college education will be fully funded wherever you choose to go. Isabella Martinez burst into tears, her hospital scrubs dampening with joy as she pressed her hands to her face. The dream of sending her daughter to college, a dream that had seemed almost impossible on a nurse's salary, had suddenly become reality. But Arnold wasn't finished. And there's more. Jessica Reynolds, step forward, please. Jessica, who had been standing quietly at the side of the stage, moved forward with uncertainty. Her earlier bravado had been replaced by genuine humility. Her designer clothes no longer seeming like armor, but rather a reminder of the privilege she had misused. Your courage in admitting your mistakes and committing to change has not gone unnoticed, Arnold said. The foundation is offering you a different kind of opportunity. We want you to lead an anti-bullying initiative that we'll be launching in schools across the country. Your story of transformation can help others find the courage to change. Jessica's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. But I was the bully, she whispered, her voice carrying through the now silent auditorium. I don't deserve this. Arnold's response was immediate and firm. Who better to lead an anti-bullying campaign than someone who understands both sides of the equation? Your story isn't just about being a bully, it's about having the courage to change. That's what makes it powerful. From her seat in the audience, Rebecca Chen continued recording, her phone capturing every moment of this unexpected turn of events. But she nearly dropped it when Arnold's next words rang out through the auditorium. Rebecca, he called, causing her to jump in her seat. Yes, you with the phone. Would you please join us on stage? On shaking legs, Rebecca made her way to the stage, her naturally curly hair, which she had spent years trying to straighten, bouncing with each step. As she reached the stage, Arnold placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Your video of today's events is already spreading across social media. The foundation has been monitoring its impact. But more importantly, we've been watching you throughout this assembly. You didn't just record what happened, you captured the heart of... That's why we want to offer you something special too. Rebecca's heart pounded as Arnold continued. We want you to document this journey. The foundation will provide you with professional equipment and mentorship from some of Hollywood's top documentary filmmakers. You'll help tell the story of how one moment of confrontation in a middle school auditorium sparked a national movement. For change, the auditorium erupted in applause, but Arnold raised his hands for silence. But wait, there's still more. Dr. Anderson, would you join us, please? The principal made his way to the stage, his usual composed demeanor slightly shaken by the unprecedented events unfolding in his school. Arnold's next announcement would give him even more reason to be amazed. The foundation is establishing a pilot program here at Roosevelt Middle School. We're calling it the Strength Through Unity Initiative. Every student will receive training in conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, and leadership skills. The school will get funding for counselors specifically trained in dealing with bullying and its root causes. And yes, he added with a smile, we're also funding a complete renovation of the school's gymnasium and athletic facilities. Dr. Anderson had to steady himself against the podium. The changes he had always dreamed of implementing but could never fund were suddenly becoming reality. But here's the most important part, Arnold continued, his voice taking on an even more serious tone. None of this would be happening without what we witnessed here today. Emma's resilience, Jessica's courage to change, Rebecca's instinct to document truth. These are the qualities that transform communities. And that's what we're really investing in, not just programs and facilities, but the potential for change that exists in every single person in this room. He turned to address the entire auditorium again. Look around you, really look. The person sitting next to you isn't just a classmate or a colleague, they're a potential agent of change. Every one of you has the power to choose who you want to be, how you want to treat others, what kind of world you want to create. Mr. Chen, watching from his seat, felt tears welling up in his eyes. His simple act of reaching out to his old college friend had sparked something far bigger than he could have imagined. He watched as Emma, Jessica, and Rebecca stood together on stage. Three girls who, under normal circumstances, might never have connected, now united in a cause larger than themselves. Isabella Martinez had stopped trying to wipe away her tears. Her daughter's future, which had seemed so uncertain that morning, was now secure. But more than that, she was watching Emma stand tall, her curly hair no longer a source of shame, but a crown of dignity. Arnold's voice cut through the emotional atmosphere one final time. But let me be clear about something. This isn't a fairy tale ending, this is a beginning. The real work starts tomorrow. The real test will be in how you all choose to treat each other when the cameras are gone and the excitement has faded. Will you remember the lessons of today? Will you have the courage to be kind when it's easier to be cruel? Will you stand up for others when it's simpler to stay silent? He gestured to Emma, Jessica, and Rebecca. These young ladies have shown us different kinds of strength today. Emma showed us the strength to endure and excel despite adversity. Jessica showed us the strength to admit mistakes and commit to change. Rebecca showed us the strength to witness and document truth. But the greatest strength, that will come from all of you working together to create lasting change. The Foundation's live stream captured every moment, broadcasting it to viewers across the country. But it was Rebecca's simple phone video, shot from the perspective of a student who understood exactly what this meant for her peers, that would ultimately go viral and touch millions of hearts. As the assembly drew to a close, Arnold had one final surprise. 1 year from today, I'll be back, not just to check on your progress, but to bring national media attention to what you've accomplished. Your story, all of your stories, will inspire schools across the country to follow your example. But remember, the cameras don't make you brave. The cameras don't make you kind. Those choices are yours to make every single day. The applause that followed wasn't just for Arnold Schwarzenegger, the celebrity. It wasn't just for Emma, Jessica, and Rebecca. It was for the possibility of transformation that now seemed within everyone's reach. It was for the promise of a future where strength meant lifting others up instead of pushing them down. Share this video to spread hope and inspire change in your own community. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. As the formal assembly drew to a close, the impact of what had transpired began to ripple through Roosevelt Middle School in ways that no one could have predicted. The transformation that had begun on stage was already taking root in the hearts and minds of everyone present. Emma Martinez stood in the school hallway, still clutching her mathematics award, surrounded by a small crowd of students who had never spoken to her before. But they weren't asking about the scholarship or her moment with Arnold. They were asking about her father. For the first time, she felt comfortable sharing stories about him, about his service, about his curly hair that matched hers, about his love for mathematics that she had inherited. He used to help me with homework over video chat when he was deployed, she told them, her voice strong and clear. He said numbers were like a secret language that connected us across any distance. The students listened intently, many of them seeing Emma not as the quiet math whiz, but as someone whose strength they had never fully understood. Meanwhile, Jessica Reynolds was having a conversation that would have seemed impossible just hours before. She sat on the steps outside the auditorium, her designer shoes scuffed from nervous fidgeting. surrounded by students she had previously tormented. But instead of accusations or anger, there was something else in the air. Understanding. "I was always so afraid," Jessica admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "My dad, he's all about image, perfect grades, perfect clothes, perfect everything. When I couldn't be perfect, I started making others feel imperfect too. It was like, if I could point out everyone else's flaws, maybe no one would notice mine." One of the students, a boy named Michael, whom Jessica had mocked for his weight, spoke up. "You know what's weird? I kinda get it. I've been mean to younger kids sometimes too. Like when you feel bad about yourself, it's easier to make someone else feel worse." Arnold, who had been observing these spontaneous gatherings from a distance, nodded in approval. He understood that real change happened not in grand moments on stage, but in these quiet conversations where truth could finally breathe. Rebecca Chen was still documenting everything, but now with a different energy. Her phone captured not just the big moments, but the small ones too. A popular girl complimenting a shy student's hijab, a group of 8th graders inviting a lonely 6th grader to sit with them, former rivals sharing nervous smiles. Dr. Anderson and Mr. Chen stood together, watching these interactions unfold. "You know," Dr. Anderson said quietly, "in 20 years of education, I've never seen anything quite like this." Mr. Chen smiled. "Sometimes all it takes is one moment of truth to break down walls that have stood for years." Isabella Martinez had taken the rest of the day off from her hospital shift, something she rarely did. She stood with Emma, watching, as her daughter stepped into her new role with a grace that brought fresh tears to her eyes. "Your father would be so proud, mi amor," she whispered, touching Emma's curls gently. "So very proud." But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was happening with Arnold himself. The action movie star and former governor had dealt with countless crisis situations, but this was different. He saw in these students the same struggles he had faced as a young immigrant: the desire to belong, the fear of being different, the temptation to build walls instead of bridges. As the afternoon progressed, Arnold gathered Emma, Jessica, and Rebecca for a private conversation in Dr. Anderson's office. "What happened today," he told them, "that was just the beginning. The real work starts now." He turned to Jessica first. "Leading an anti-bullying initiative isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. Your story will help others because it's real. You're not speaking from a place of judgment, but from experience." Jessica nodded, her usual confidence replaced by something more genuine. "I want to start with an apology tour," she said. "Not just here at Roosevelt, but at other schools too. I want people to understand that bullies can change, but first they have to face what they've done." Arnold smiled approvingly before turning to Emma. "Your scholarship isn't just about academics, it's about leadership. The way you handled yourself today, offering help to someone who hurt you, that's the kind of leadership we need more of in this world." Emma straightened in her chair. "I want to start a peer tutoring program," she said, "not just for math, but for everything. Sometimes people act tough because they're struggling and don't know how to ask for help." Finally, Arnold addressed Rebecca. "Your documentation of today isn't just about recording events. It's about capturing truth, the kind of truth that can change hearts and minds." Rebecca held her phone tightly. "I want to interview everyone," she said. "Not just about bullying, but about why we do it, why we allow it, and how we can stop it. I want to show the whole story, not just the easy parts." As they talked, Dr. Anderson shared his own vision for Roosevelt's future. The Strength Through Unity initiative would transform not just the physical space of the school, but its very culture. Every student would have access to counseling, conflict resolution training, and leadership development opportunities. "But here's the challenge," Arnold said, leaning forward in his chair. "1 year from now, when I come back, I don't just want to see changes in programs and policies. I want to see changes in hearts and minds. I want Roosevelt Middle School to become a model for schools across the country. The impact of the day's events continued to spread beyond the school's walls. Rebecca's video, combined with the Foundation's live stream footage, was already going viral. Roosevelt Revolution had become a national trending topic, with students from other schools sharing their own stories of bullying and transformation. Local news crews had begun gathering outside the school, but Arnold had insisted that they wait. "This isn't about media attention," he told Dr. Anderson. "It's about giving these kids space to process what's happened and start making real changes." As the school day drew to a close, something remarkable happened in the parking lot. Students, who normally rushed to leave, were lingering, forming small groups, having conversations that needed to be had. Jessica approached Emma one more time, this time without any cameras rolling. "Thank you," she said simply, "not just for forgiving me, but for showing me a different way to be strong." Emma smiled, touching her curly hair that now felt like a crown. "My dad used to say that the strongest people are the ones who help others find their strength." Arnold watched this exchange from a distance, remembering his own journey from a bullied immigrant to a global icon. He knew that what had happened at Roosevelt Middle School today wasn't just about stopping bullying, it was about understanding the human heart's capacity for both cruelty and kindness, and choosing kindness even when it's hard. As parents arrived to pick up their children, many were surprised to find their kids reluctant to leave. Small groups had formed all over the campus. Former rivals talking quietly, popular kids mingling with those they had previously ignored. Barriers of social status and cliques dissolving in the afternoon sun. Mr. Chen overheard one student say to another, "You know, I never knew your sister had cancer. I'm sorry I made fun of your fundraiser bracelets." Another student was apologizing for spreading rumors about someone's family situation. Everywhere, truth was replacing gossip, understanding was replacing judgment. The Foundation's team had set up a temporary office in the school library, already beginning to implement the promised changes. But more importantly, they were documenting the spontaneous transformations happening throughout the school. These would become part of their training materials for other schools, showing that change is possible when people are given the opportunity to be their best selves. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the school grounds, Arnold gathered everyone who remained for one final message. "Tomorrow," he said, "you'll wake up, and this will feel like a dream. The cameras will be gone, the excitement will fade, and you'll face the same choices you've always faced. But remember this feeling. Remember how it feels to choose kindness over cruelty, understanding over judgment, strength through unity over power through fear." He looked at each face in the crowd, his expression serious but hopeful. "1 year from now, I'll return. Not just to check on programs and policies, but to see if you've maintained the courage you've shown today. Will you be brave enough to keep choosing kindness when no one is watching? Will you remember that true strength isn't about pushing others down, but lifting them up?" The responses came not in words, but in actions. Students who had never spoken before exchanged phone numbers. Plans were made for study groups, for lunch meetings, for new friendships. The seeds of change had been planted, and they were already beginning to grow. Share this video to remind the world that change is possible when we choose kindness over cruelty. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. 1 month after the events at Roosevelt Middle School, Rebecca Chen sat in the newly renovated media lab, carefully editing the footage that had changed not just her school, but was now transforming schools across the nation. Her viral video, combined with the Foundation's professional footage, had sparked a movement that exceeded everyone's expectations. The transformation of Roosevelt Middle School had become a blueprint for educational institutions nationwide. But it wasn't just the programs and policies that were making headlines. It was the stories of individual change that captured hearts and inspired action. Emma Martinez, now leading both the peer tutoring program and the mathematics club, had become a symbol of resilience and grace. Her story had reached military families across the country, inspiring a new support network for children who had lost parents in service. The sight of her proudly wearing her curly hair natural had sparked conversations about beauty standards and self-acceptance in schools everywhere. "My father always said that true strength comes from lifting others up," Emma's voice narrated over footage of her working with younger students. "Now I understand what he meant. Every time I help someone understand a difficult math problem, I'm not just teaching numbers, I'm showing them that their struggles don't define them." Jessica Reynolds' transformation had perhaps been the most dramatic. The former bully had thrown herself into anti-bullying work with the same intensity. She had once devoted to maintaining her social status. Her courage to change presentations, which she now delivered at schools across the district, always began with a simple truth. "I was a bully because I was afraid. Afraid of not being perfect, afraid of not meeting expectations, afraid of my own insecurities." The camera captured Jessica sitting cross-legged on the floor with a group of sixth graders, her designer clothes replaced by a simple "Strength Through Unity" t-shirt. "The hardest person to forgive is yourself," she told them, "but that's where real change begins." Arnold Schwarzenegger had kept his promise to stay involved. Weekly video calls with the student leadership team, surprise virtual appearances in assemblies, and constant support from his foundation had maintained the momentum of change. But more importantly, his influence had attracted attention from other celebrities and public figures who wanted to support the movement. The Strength Through Unity initiative had expanded beyond Roosevelt's walls. Dr. Anderson found himself fielding calls from principals across the country, all wanting to know how they could implement similar programs in their schools. The foundation had created a comprehensive toolkit, but always emphasized that the most important elements couldn't be packaged in a manual. They had to come from the heart. Mr. Chen's mathematics classroom had become a symbol of the new Roosevelt spirit. Students who once sat in rigid social groupings now mixed freely, helping each other understand complex problems. "Mathematics teaches us that every problem has a solution," he would say. "The same is true for human relationships. We just have to be willing to work through the difficult equations." Isabella Martinez had been promoted to head nurse at the hospital, partly because of her inspiring story of single parenthood and dedication to her daughter's education. She now led workshops for working parents, helping them balance career demands with active involvement in their children's education. Her hospital scrubs had become a symbol of pride, not just for Emma, but for all the students whose parents worked demanding jobs to give them better opportunities. Rebecca's documentary project had evolved into something more profound than anyone expected. She didn't just capture the big moments of transformation, she found stories in the quiet corners of everyday school life. Her camera recorded the first time a popular student sat with someone who usually ate alone, the moment a former target of bullying stood up for someone else, the tears in a teacher's eyes when former rivals worked together on a project. "The real story isn't in the dramatic moments," Rebecca's voice narrated over a montage of these small but significant changes. "It's in the daily choices we make. The decision to smile instead of smirk, to include instead of exclude, to understand instead of judge." The physical transformation of Roosevelt was stunning. The foundation's funding had renovated not just the gymnasium, but had created spaces specifically designed to foster connection and community. The cafeteria now had round tables instead of long rectangular ones, making it harder for cliques to form and easier for groups to mix. The library had been redesigned with comfortable conversation nooks where students could study together or just talk. But the most significant changes weren't physical, they were cultural. The social hierarchy that had once dominated school, life had been replaced by something more organic and inclusive. Students were valued for their unique contributions rather than their status or appearance. The concept of popular had evolved from being about exclusivity to being about inclusivity. Arnold's foundation had commissioned a study of the changes at Roosevelt, and the results were remarkable. Disciplinary incidents had dropped by 78%. Academic performance had improved across all grade levels. Attendance was up. Anxiety-related visits to the school nurse were down, and parent involvement had increased significantly. But statistics don't tell the whole story, Arnold said during one of his video calls with the student leadership team. The real measure of success is in the stories you share, the lives you touch, the changes you inspire in others. The video cuts to a powerful moment. Jessica and Emma co-leading a workshop for students from other schools. Jessica speaks first. "I used to think strength meant making others feel small. Emma taught me that real strength is having the courage to admit when you're wrong and the compassion to help others grow." Emma follows, "And I learned from Jessica that everyone deserves a chance to change. Sometimes the people who act the strongest are carrying the heaviest burdens. True strength is helping each other carry those burdens." Rebecca's camera captures the reaction in the audience. Students from different schools, different backgrounds, all nodding in recognition of these universal truths. The movement that began in one middle school auditorium was now spreading, school by school, heart by heart. The Foundation's initiative had sparked something even larger. Students across the country began sharing their own stories of transformation, using the hashtag #StrengthThroughUnity. The movement had tapped into a desperate need for change in school culture, and the responses were overwhelming. As the one-year mark approached, preparations began for Arnold's promised return visit. But something had changed in the anticipation. The students weren't just excited to show him the physical changes in their school, they were eager to share their personal transformations. The video concludes with a powerful sequence of faces, students, teachers, parents, each speaking directly to the camera, sharing what they learned from the Roosevelt Revolution. "I learned that my differences are my strength. I learned that it's never too late to change. I learned that true power comes from lifting others up. I learned that everyone has a story worth hearing. I learned that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right, even when you're afraid." Finally, the camera returns to Emma, Jessica, and Rebecca standing together in the school courtyard. The sun sets behind them, casting a golden glow that seems to symbolize the warmth of the changes they've inspired. Emma speaks first. "To anyone watching this, who feels different, who feels alone," Jessica continues. "To anyone who's been hurt or has hurt others," Rebecca concludes, "your story isn't over. Change is possible, connection is possible." Arnold's voice carries over the final montage. "Strength isn't just about muscles. It's not about power over others. True strength is about the courage to be kind when it's easier to be cruel. It's about lifting others up instead of pushing them down. It's about unity through understanding, power through compassion, and victory through kindness." The screen fades to a simple message. This isn't just a story about one school. It's a challenge to every person watching. How will you choose to use your strength today? Share your story using Strength Through Unity. The video ends with a series of text screens in memory of Staff Sergeant David Martinez. For every student who's ever felt alone, for every person who's found the courage to change, and for everyone still looking for their strength. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. Together, we can transform every school into a place of strength through unity. Share this video if you believe in the power of transformation and the strength of unity. Your story could be the one that changes someone's life.